If it looks like I'm tired, it's just because I got through playing Empire Total War basically all night. I would say about 8 hours worth of Empire. And I guess if I'm going to start my review of that one, just giving my thoughts of it, I guess there is something to be said about me having just played it for about 8 hours. In that I actually was very involved for that entire amount of time, and I was entertained. I basically played through the entire American campaign, like the Revolutionary War campaign, just to see how it worked out. So I do have some thoughts. And surprisingly, even to me, those feelings are very, very frustrated. I know I said I had a lot of fun with it, but that's fun with a lot of provisions to it. Empire Total War is not a very good game, and I am surprised to hear myself say that. And I know you might be thinking I'm just trying to find flaws in the game or I'm never happy with anything. That's not true. I was actually thinking I would absolutely adore Empire Total War because I love Rome Total War and all of the Total War games before it. And I found this one very, very disappointing. So I'll try to explain why. Near the end, I found myself skipping combat a lot, having the computer auto-resolve it, which was something I kind of fell into during Rome Total War, but much more so during this game. And I started to think about why that was, because I should not have been doing that. Because when you're skipping the combat, the main feature of Empire Total War, I think there's something wrong. And maybe it's something wrong with me, but I would be much more confident that there's something wrong with this game. And there are a lot of things wrong with this game. First and foremost that I could think of was the artificial intelligence, which is terrible. And it's terrible on both sides. But I'll start with the friendly AI, because that's one of the more frustrating parts. The friendly AI is ridiculous. Simply for the fact that it doesn't fucking listen. For instance, when you give a unit an order, it doesn't do it. You'll give an order for, like, let's say a group of musketmen to shoot at another group of musketmen down the hill. Half the time, it won't do it. It won't react. You'll just hear kind of a clank, and then nothing happens. I have lost count of the number of times I've ordered a group of units to open fire or to charge an enemy, and they just do nothing. I don't get how that happens. And I'm not talking like they need to instantaneously react. I know units in the Total War series kind of move at their own pace. They have to kind of remaneuver and go. They don't do anything. I would wait like a minute, and they wouldn't even turn their heads in the direction the enemy I was pointing at. I don't know if they were engaged with some other enemy. I doubt it. But it just seemed really frustrating when you would give an order several times and nothing would occur. Pathfinding is totally ridiculous in this game. It gets worse the more units you try to order around. But simply telling a group of units to march forward in a straight line is beyond the pathfinding AI of this game. Once again, I've lost the count of the number of times I've ordered a unit of several hundred guys to just march straight ahead, and you'll see the green pathfinding lines that point from where they are to where they'll end up, and it looks like a fucking spider web. It should not look like that. It should look like straight lines going straight ahead, but it doesn't do that, and I don't know why. Maybe it's the terrain features that are confusing the AI. Maybe it's the formation that it's trying to keep, but you'll have this perfect formation of guys lined up in your little row or a V, and then you'll click somewhere off in the distance for them to march, and they'll just all start running. They're like, "Duh, where do we go? No, no, no!" And they'll start they'll start tripping over each other. Units will have to stop while other units pass in front of them, and they'll all be going their own separate ways. Just go forward. I don't get how that happens. And it's really frustrating when you're trying to set up an ambush or you're trying to set up a kill zone between two pieces of cover and nobody knows which way to face. They'll be facing the wrong way entirely. It's ridiculous. And then it leads us to the enemy AI, which is equally, if not more so, stupid. It's hard to describe what's exactly wrong with the enemy AI, but I'll just start with saying it seems like there's no central intelligence behind any of the armies, as in like no commanding leader. It never feels like you're facing anyone behind the wheel, if that makes sense. And I guess the best way to describe that is if you were to attack a unit on somebody's left, like maybe a stray unit somewhere off on the left, or maybe you attack someone on their flank, none of the central units or none of the units on the other flank will react at all. The units on the other flank might react, although I find that's increasingly a problem with both sides of the AI, friendly and enemy, is sometimes units won't even react when they're fired upon. Even something so simple as, when you are shot at, shoot back. I don't know why that is, but they seem to have no self-preservation instinct whatsoever. They seem to have no initiative on their own to defend themselves. Likewise, you'll be able to pick off sometimes entire squads because no matter... I was able to defeat enemy armies I had no business defeating, like outnumbered 3, 4, even 5 to 1, because the enemy did not coordinate its attack at all. It would just leave units out there straight out to die. It would not reinforce its own units. It would not react to flanking maneuvers. It doesn't use cavalry effectively. It doesn't use artillery effectively. It's totally confused by the concept of using cover or stealth. It never uses stealth on its own. It never uses cover on its own, at least not intelligently. If it happens to march into cover, it might use it, but it never seeks out cover. It's totally stymied by the concept that you might ever use cover. It's always surprised that you would march out of a forest behind them and attack. It never seems to occur to them that you might be in the only piece of cover in that entire field. It never seems to think that you might be garrisoned inside a structure, and even when it finds out that you are inside that structure, makes no move to attack you or find some intelligent way of getting you out, like firing artillery at the building. It might throw cavalry at your building, which is like the best thing it could possibly do, but the cavalry won't even attack. It'll just kind of ride in circles around the building. I remember seeing that kind of thing. It's insultingly easy to provoke the enemy into doing stupid things. Like the Battle of Bunker Hill, a battle which you should actually lose if you're the colonists, if you're going by any historical record, because you're far outnumbered and you're surrounded on all sides. And yet you can lure the enemy, which has about 1,000 more people than you do, into choke points over and over again. It doesn't know how to defend its artillery. As long as you know where the enemy artillery is, you can just run cavalry right over it. It will never reinforce them. It will never move them, and it will never put infantry in front of you, between you and the artillery. So yeah, if you leave the artillery to shoot at you, it'll beat you up. But as long as you see where the cannonballs are coming from and you send a horse after it, they're gone. So in that regard, you'll actually start to skip the combat, not necessarily because it's too hard, but because it's too easy. You start to dread it because you're like, this is so stupid. What am I doing? What are they doing? You just feel like you're kind of wasting time beating up a retarded kid. You know, there's just no challenge in it, even in the harder difficulties. I actually had to turn it up to feel like there was any challenge. And I'm not that good at real-time strategy games, I gotta tell you. So if I'm having an easy time with it, I gotta feel that other people are just being bored. But the main reason I was skipping combat is because the performance is terrible. The performance hitches no matter what you do. You might as well forget about it if you're playing large-scale combat, because you will literally see 5-second hitches in performance between the time you click on an order and the time it's resolved. I found that the sound would cut out. Like, as soon as the battle would load, you would hear the music, but you wouldn't hear voices, you wouldn't hear gunfire, you wouldn't hear the sound of feet or hooves. You wouldn't hear anything. And when the combat would be over, all of a sudden you'd hear sound again. Or sometimes you'd hear sound effects that were delayed from like 5 minutes before that would suddenly occur, and you'd be like, what? But, yeah, performance, even on the map screen, is sometimes bad. Having to wait for... whenever you end the turn, you will literally have to wait for every enemy and every ally on the screen to take their turn. I get that, and it's useful to know where they're going, but sometimes the time between turns will literally be about 2 to 3 minutes as you see the enemy generals trying to reinforce each other and moving around. You don't even really know what they're doing. They just kind of move in between towns back and forth. You're like, what are you doing? And they walk at the slowest possible rate. You'd think there'd be some way to hurry it up, but there's not. So the time between turns is a drag. And the worst part, I think, is the crashes to desktop. And that's compounded with the fact that the load times in this game are absolutely horrendously atrocious. I actually had to check online to see if people were having as much problems with the random crashes to desktop as I was, and I still don't know, but I did see a bunch of people complaining about it, so I guess I'm not the only person having problems. I saw a lot of people like hypothesizing as to why they were crashing to desktop, and they never really seemed to have a concrete answer. Like, I know one person seemed to say that every time they captured a city it would crash. I didn't find that. I found it didn't fucking matter what I was doing, the game would just spontaneously crash on me. Although, if I were to guess as to why it would be crashing, it would be whenever the game switched modes or brought up a new screen. Like, if I tried to bring up the colony management screen, it might crash. Or if I tried to attack a unit and switch to battle mode, it would crash. Or if I tried to switch from the battle to the map screen again after the battle was over, it would crash. And that's terrible when you have just finished a 15 to 20 minute combat. Easy though you might find it, it's still tedious, and you still have to play somewhat intelligently to finish the combat. So after 20 minutes of fighting the Battle of Bunker Hill, it crashes the desktop, and I want to smash my fucking fist through the monitor. It's insanely frustrating, and that's compounded with the fact that the load times are some of the worst load times I've ever seen in any game. It will literally take about 60 to 70 seconds for the game to load from Windows just to get to the menu screen. To load your latest save game, it'll probably take 20 to 30 seconds, and to switch from the map screen to combat and vice versa will literally take you about 2 to 3 minutes. 2 to 3 minutes of staring at the fucking load screen. Combine that with random and frequent crashes to desktop, and you have got a formula for frustration. I spent 8 hours playing this game, and about 3 of that was waiting for the game to load because it was crashing so often, and I had to wait every time for the battle screen to load. That is simply unacceptable, and it renders the game virtually unplayable. Or at least, if it's not unplayable, no fun to play, because you'll be afraid of playing it. You'll be afraid of starting the fights, because every time the game switches modes, you fear you might crash. So, when the game that is based on the warfare aspect of it, the real-time warfare aspect, doesn't do the warfare right, there's a serious problem. It's not fun to play. So there needs to be some serious overhauling, both in the performance aspects of it, patching the between-turn drag, fixing the crashes to desktop, and finding some way to fix those loading times, because right now the game is not very fun to play in the long term. And there kind of is no short term, just waiting for the game to load. You're kind of in it for the long haul when you've started this game running. So, and also I kind of missed. My favorite part of Rome Total War was like raising family members that had their own little unique aspects of their personality to them, like insane, or this guy is a better leader or politician, or this guy's a better leader in warfare. That has kind of been phased out in the Empire Total War. That's kind of missing. So there are a lot of new features, but at the same time, a lot of old features kind of got shuffled off, and I miss them. So I cannot recommend Empire Total War, guys. I'm sorry. If I were to suggest anything, it would be, I keep going back to this, but Civilization 4. I still have a lot of fun with Civ 4. I love the expansion packs, and even if you're into the whole colonization thing of the 1800s, I would suggest Civilization 4 Colonization, which is kind of a extensive, complete mod of Civ 4, but it's still a lot of fun. It's missing the real-time strategy aspect of it, and if you miss that, I would probably suggest a game that's much more satisfying, like Sins of a Solar Empire, or I would just even crack out some. There's a lot of other real-time strategy games like Red Alert or something like that. But no, I actually can't recommend Empire Total War unless you are seriously into the Total War series, and you're pretty confident you can stand the load times. You have a pretty good computer that you don't mind the performance hitches. But otherwise, like I said, I got a pretty good computer, and I have a lot of problems with it, and I think you will too. So I can't recommend it. Very disappointing. Have a good day, everyone. I'll try to come back with some more SWAT 4, and maybe I'll have some better game recommendations, because this game season for me has been kind of a letdown so far. But anyway, have a good day, everyone, and I'll see you back here soon.